Hello, guys. Welcome. This is a weird show, right? Because it's the first episode of the new era of Turnbuckle Talk, but we're here with the originator of Turnbuckle Talk. So the way this is all going to work, each week I'm going to be joined by another wrestling journalist, if we can call ourselves that, someone else in this weird space. And the first one I'm joined by is Alex McCarthy of talkSPORT, formerly of GiveMeSport, formerly of the Turnbuckle Talk podcast. So Alex, how you doing?
I'm good, brother. Like, you've even kept the name. You know, you didn't even freshen it up. I like to think you're paying homage to my legacy with this.
It's a good name.
It is a good name. We actually took ages to come up with it. But it's cool to see the legacy live. You know, you've been doing great anyway in terms of the interviews and the news and whatnot. So to see the podcast come back, it drew a wry smile from me, Louis.
Good. And I know smiles have been hard to come by at the moment because I don't know about you, but I am shattered. So we are recording this. God. I'm aiming to release this today. So we're recording this on Sunday before TakeOver. I'm absolutely shattered.
I honestly don't know if I'm going to stay up for TakeOver. I'm that tired. I seriously am.
I mean, I haven't got the kids to deal with that you do, but I am because it was obviously Rampage, which we'll get on to talking about. And I wouldn't have normally watched Rampage live, I've got to be honest, but it was Punk, so I couldn't not. And then SummerSlam last night, and I am just gone, absolutely gone. But we thought, what better time to relaunch this podcast when there's so much going on within wrestling and so much to talk about. So we'll jump straight in and talk about AEW Rampage on Friday night. Obviously, the CM Punk show. What were your thoughts on the whole thing, how it played out, and kind of Punk back in wrestling?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I thought AEW handled it about as well as they possibly could have. You know, it's very difficult to strike the balance between surprise and anticipation. And I saw some criticism beforehand, right? Like, they should have just gone all in and promoted CM Punk, or they should have made it a surprise, but they found this weird, unusual middle ground, which I actually think ended up working perfectly. Yeah. The crowd knew what they wanted. They knew what they paid for. AEW gave it to them. They presented it extremely well. It's literally all you could ask for. It's one of those special magic moments that we'll look back on for so many years to come. I thought Punk nailed his promo as well, which is, shock. CM Punk nails a promo. But, we did the media scrum after. And as abrasive as CM Punk's personality is, what really shone through, I guess, was just what the whole moment, and I say moment all-encompassing, because not just Rampage, but signing with AEW and basically rediscovering his love for professional wrestling. The whole, I left pro wrestling in 2005, making a big point that he doesn't consider WWE to be real pro wrestling. That pretty much said it all. And the whole line about, I couldn't get better if I stayed in the place that made me sick. People will interpret that as shots at WWE, and they are. But at the same time, I don't think they're shots for shots' sake or anything like that. I think it's very deeply personal to CM Punk's story. So I'm just happy to see that he's happy. It's another tremendous world-class performer back in the business where we can get excited about. I think everyone's a winner. I really do. I think this has worked out about as great as it could have. I'm just excited to see where it goes.
Yeah, me too. And I think it was weird seeing back, surreal seeing back. And it's one of those things where when someone returns now, you don't normally feel like that, like the way that I felt when Punk was back. It just felt like, damn, he's actually back in wrestling. And when he was cutting his promo, part of me was expecting a swerve, like he was going to turn on the fans or something. Like, I don't know why. I think that's just like maybe
in Chicago.
I know, but like it was when he was like, oh, like I just want you guys to know, like I want to say to the people that like I've felt like I've disappointed them, and like, I guess like my WWE brain was like, oh, there's going to be a swerve coming because that's what you'd normally expect. But I thought it was great the way they did it. Him opening the show was the right call. Because you can't, whoever would have gone before, the crowd would have just been waiting for that. And I do feel bad for the people that went after, because realistically, like we were all just on Twitter talking about Punk. Like, were any of us really watching Private Party versus Jurassic Express. I can't tell you one thing that happened in that match. I'm sure it was great, but I think it was really, really well done. I mean, I've heard some people call it one of the best wrestling returns ever, and like I think it's up there for sure. It's up there with Edge from the Royal Rumble. And I'm just really excited about the future of this. And obviously, we know in the immediate future, he's facing Darby Allin at All Out on September 5th. What do you think about Darby as Punk's kind of first opponent? And do you think it kind of settles why Punk came back in terms of wanting to face these newer, younger talents?
Well, I think he's going to get round to everyone. So, like those thinking, oh, Kenny Omega, like, you know, it will happen. But, you know, him and Tony Khan were very kind of overt about the fact that they've put together a hit list, for want of a better term. Punk has a very clear idea of who he wants to work with. But interestingly enough, it's Tony Khan, as we learn, that pushed for Darby Allin to be the first, which I think that says everything about Tony Khan's mentality. It really does. You know, he wants to utilize the star power within the company to help lift everything up around them. I saw somebody the other day, and I don't always agree with Voices of Wrestling, but somebody made a very good point where they said, I don't think anyone else could have changed and influenced the landscape of pro wrestling the way Tony Khan has. Like, he has the perfect package of being a diehard fan with great knowledge of the business, right? An actual businessman with amazing contacts, and he's got deep pockets. It's literally the triumphant that hardly anyone else has been able to put together. And you partner that with the storm that the Elite brewed on the Indies for years and in Japan. It literally is the perfect storm. It could not have come together any better. So I think it's a testament to everything that AEW stands for, that they've said, you know what, Punk's back. Amazing. We could put him against Moxley, Jericho, Omega. We could do any of that if we wanted to and just get a big first comeback match. But they've said, no, how's it going to benefit everyone else? How's it going to feel fresh? And that's what AEW does. I think it's inspired decision-making. And I've said this before, in danger of becoming like an AEW sycophant, but I just think everything that they do is so rewarding and like it feels fresh. And I've said this before, nothing feels routine with AEW, and I love that about them. So again, I think they've just hit it on every base here right now. If you were tuning in to Rampage and you watch the CM Punk segment and it cuts to the rafters and he's talking about Darby Allin, nearly everyone's going to be like, who is that guy? Even if you didn't know who he was, right? If you were just tuning in for CM Punk, you'd be like, who is that? With the killer face paint, he's standing next to Sting. CM Punk wants him. Like, oh, like it's so effective. It's just smart. It really was. Again, people listening to this probably think, just waxing lyrical about the whole thing. But literally everything on its merits, by any criteria, was incredibly successful.
Yeah, and I think that it kind of the Sting partnership makes sense. Not makes sense now because it's been great, but people that might have been tuning in for Punk who might not be watching current wrestling will know who Sting is. They're like, oh, this guy must be the real deal if he's paired with Sting. And then having Darby come out at the end and having him have the spotlight and his coffin drop be kind of the exclamation mark on the show and the post-match angle kind of really established. It gave him the rub, and I'm looking forward to that match. I think it main events. Like, I can't see it not.
Probably.
In Chicago, you can't not have Punk main event. I think it'd be a real missed opportunity if he doesn't, and I'm just looking forward to it. But question I've got for you is, we got Darby's first, but who is someone else? And I know he mentioned a load of people on the media call, but who is one person that you really want to see Punk in there with?
MJF, easy MJF. Like the promos, of course, sell themselves to just elite talkers, but even the whole MJF Jericho storyline, like, I'm going to take the GOAT spot, or I want to, get rid of CM Punk and this, reunion tour with professional wrestling. And I just feel like MJF would be not only magical for the segments and the stories they can craft, but in the ring, I guess this is a common thing to say. I don't think MJF gets enough credit for how good he is in the ring. I thought he did wonderfully well against Jericho last week, and mate, I think the possibilities are endless. But again, if you're using CM Punk and you want it to be like an amazing story program, but where someone also benefits from that, mate, the MJF is the call.
I agree, and I think that'd be incredible for both. But the rating's not out yet, so we don't know what Rampage drew. What are you expecting?
Well, I read that Dave Meltzer. Actually, I'm not as well educated on the US rating system as obviously those guys are, because they were saying that there's all kind of different markets to calibrate for yet. But originally, the number looks like it's going to be incredibly good. So, I don't know, like 2 million maybe. Who knows?
Wow, you think 2 million?
Could be. I don't see why not. Yeah, it's just what everyone is talking about right now. Again, I think it's over 1 million. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I just, who knows between 1 and 2? Probably between 1 and 1.5. Anywhere in that region, I think it's considered a great success, especially for a show like Rampage. That's new. But I wouldn't be surprised if they just blew us away and they were like, you know what, it's like 2 million, because just based on the fact that it is CM Punk and his long-awaited return, and everyone kind of knew. So, there was a lot of people that were just desperate to watch. I wouldn't be surprised. But if like someone said to me, put money on it, I think I would say like 1.5.
Okay, I was around that. I was like 1.2, 1.3, I think it'll get. But I think Dynamite next week is going to be huge, because obviously it was AEW struck this balance of basically saying Punk's going to be there without saying Punk's going to be there. So we all knew he was going to be there, but I think actually having him there will incentivize so many people to watch Dynamite next week. I think it could be a huge show, and I think this could be this is the one free agent now, especially with Brock back in WWE, which we'll get onto, that could really be big for AEW. I don't know anyone that's going to have. I know Brian will have a big impact, but I don't think he'll have the impact in terms of AEW as a business that CM Punk will. I'm really excited for it. And I think it was just a great way to start off the weekend. I know obviously 2 different companies, but people just in a good mood on Friday night. Like people are saying this is why they love wrestling. I know I asked Tony on the media call. So many people were saying, like, thank you, AEW, for saving my love of wrestling. And I think it's so cool that one promotion and one guy, essentially, in 2 years has been able to do that. So kind of obviously switching gears now from the return of CM Punk to SummerSlam. Your thoughts on the show last night in Las Vegas? Felt like WWE was back with that big pay-per-view that we all know. But how did you think SummerSlam was?
The first half, I was really like underwhelmed.
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, I don't think this is a great show. RK Bro was cool. That was a cool win, right? Big Randy and Riddle fan. Very cool. AJ, hopefully he's back in singles before we know it. I was very much fine with that. Eva Marie and Bliss was awful. Yeah. Like, I like both women, but it was awful. I didn't really enjoy it at all. And I'm just running through the card here, but even like Sheamus and Priest kind of it went through the gears and eventually got good, but like originally it was just a bit like I can't even really think. Drew and Jinder, not good. Sorry, again, I like guys, both of them very much, but it's not that the action was bad, but it didn't really have enough time or memorable moments to be anything really. Like that's kind of what SummerSlam felt like. A lot of the matches were kind of rushed. I think we got to like the Usos and Mysterios, and I started to be a bit like, okay, picking up some business here, some good action and good story. But in that first half of the card, there just felt like there was too much where I was like, oh man, this is, it's like an effort. And then of course we get to Becky Lynch and Bianca Belair. Now I know I've seen you say you don't think it's that bad. It is bad. It's bad.
I'll clarify what I meant after you said what you said.
Sure you can. But what I'm saying is it is bad because they could have done something else, right? It's not like, it's all well and good going, it's not that bad. And I don't think it's that bad. It's not a disaster.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like there are literally 100 different things they could have done that would have been more effective. Essentially, a la what they did Brock Lesnar, they could have done here and it would have been fine. All the Becky Lynch had to do was get that return pop and everyone was like, Could have done that after Bianca absolutely squashes Carmella in the same way or the same amount of time that Becky took to beat her. Could have done that. And then you've got, Bianca and Becky moving forward, the stare down. That is infinitely better than what they did. Because Bianca Belair, in the eyes of many, you undo a lot of amazing work they've done in 2021 through Bayley, through Sasha Banks to make Bianca Belair a legitimate main eventer, champion, and she fully arrived. It's not like, it was still a project or she was still figuring it out. To me, Bianca Belair was like a bona fide star at this point. And Becky literally just, squash is harsh because she kind of fooled her with the handshake. But at the same time, I don't think that did anything for Bianca Belair. It was all about making a moment for Becky Lynch. And I just don't know if that was worth it, if the expense, if the cost was worth what you got. So for me, I absolutely would have done it differently. Becky Lynch pop, amazing. They had me. I thought they'd proper shit the bed when Carmella came out. But at the same time, I felt the end of it, having Becky wrestle, they probably thought this is a good way to placate the fans who expected Banks, but I just don't think it was. That's for me personally.
So when I said it wasn't, and you're referencing the tweet where I said it wasn't, I don't think it's as bad as people are making out. I've seen people say it's a burial of Banks. Of Belair. I don't think it's a burial. I wouldn't say she's buried, and I think that word's thrown about too often, and I don't think this was an example of that. What I will say was, like you said, it could have been done a lot better. I thought the idea behind it until the match started was brilliant. Like, you gave people Carmella, and you knew that they were going to be angry. You knew that when it wasn't Banks, they were going to be angry that it was Carmella. And the only person it could have been was Becky Lynch to make fans happy. And it was good. And when she comes out and says, let's tear the house down together, great. Go on to a match. It wasn't what I expected it to be. I don't think it was what anyone expected it to be. I actually went over to another tab and was writing my results for GiveMeSport and missed the entire match because it was seconds. This is obviously not the end of the feud. Maybe it'll be a Saudi Arabia show or Extreme Rules next month. I don't think we've seen the last of these two together. And kind of Bella hinted as much when she did her post-match. I think it was at the after party or something. She kind of said as much that they're not done. But I don't think it's a burial. I don't think it's a catastrophe that everyone's making out to be. It's certainly not ideal. And
it's a bad look. It's a bad look. What does it do for Belair? After all that work you've done, it does nothing.
It does nothing for Belair. I get that. I just don't think when I said it's not as bad. Also, it's not as bad as people are making it out to be.
No, it's not a burial. But then I would never claim that it was. But what you can say is, okay, Becky Lynch, she walks away with the title. Now she returns with the title. What is that meant to get you excited about seeing Belair and Banks and Lynch run it back? Is it?
I mean, listen. Yeah, I'm still excited for it. I
am because I know what they can do. But my argument is, you look at a lot of people now who have been told so often, let it play out. Come on, let it play out. And what happens here if Becky just goes over her twice?
Yeah, it's difficult. It is difficult, and I get that. But do you think, and it's kind of a worry I had today, do you think this is going to impact? Because Becky is undoubtedly one of the biggest stars WWE has got, male or female, and a big fan favorite. Do you think this is going to impact how fans treat her on SmackDown?
Or she's too over at the moment, right? It all depends how the story plays out, I guess. But she's way too over for that to change on like a dime. But can we acknowledge, by the way, that I did say I think she was going to be coming back to SmackDown? Can we put this out there?
You did.
I did say this.
You did.
Many weeks ago.
But hang on. Do we think, obviously, Banks wasn't able to take part on the show. WWE announced that, not cleared, I think, is what Sean Sapper said. Do you think she was going to return either way?
Yes, but probably not in the way that she did. It was probably going to be a post-match thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Which would have been better.
Yeah, absolutely would have been. But unfortunately, we obviously didn't get to see that play out. I just feel like they could have done a lot more to make Belair appear the equal in the eyes of Lynch, right?
I agree.
And instead, straight away, she's come back. And I get it. It's a chapter in the story. Like, I'm not mad at it per se. In my tweet last night, I essentially just said, everything they did is fine if just the match is longer.
Yeah.
Even 5 minutes, right? Like, let there be some kind of, build something there. But instead, they've just gone, Becky Lynch, too smart for you, too good for you. One move this is that put Belair to bed.
And somebody who
so by the way, Belair has been beating all year two of the best female wrestlers in the world in Bayley and Sasha Banks, but Becky Lynch hits her with one move. Like,
WWE will go for she wasn't expecting it story. Like we know they will, and that'll be what they consider to be an out.
Doesn't make it good.
It doesn't make it good. It doesn't make it good. But what I am excited about is Becky Lynch back in WWE. I think that especially with Bayley out, I think having Becky Lynch back is big. She's a huge addition to the SmackDown roster now that's got Sasha Banks whenever she is back. We details are quite scarce about when she will be cleared, but Bianca Belair in that, you can put Toni Storm in there, Naomi in there. It's a very good women's division from one that was actually pretty weak a few weeks ago, and we were all sitting there like, do they have enough women to fill up a Money in the Bank quota? But now they've got this quite stacked roster. Becky's champion. So
SmackDown they're not even using Toni Storm and like Mia Yim and people of that nature. Like SmackDown have got women. Like, let's not get that twisted. But they just, they're not really utilizing them the way they should be. Even Tegan Nox and Shotzi have come up, right? So they've got the people. But I guess just to pivot back to the SmackDown card, SummerSlam card. From here, barring Lashley and Goldberg, which I still found not great, but we'll get to that. The next matches I thought were amazing. The triple threat for the ladies, Charlotte Flair absolutely killed it. So much so that when she won the title, people were just like, yeah, probably, because she absolutely crushed it. What a performance that was. And then you look at Edge and Rollins. To me, in years from now, we'll talk about that as like a SummerSlam classic. The spots they had in there that were awesome. The momentum in that match as it got into the home straight was phenomenal.
I love the Glam Slam. I saw a good joke. I saw a good joke. Someone said it was like, both of them used their partner's moves. Edge used the Glam Slam and Seth Rollins used the pedigree, which I thought was quite funny. But I thought that was a good match. I was surprised by the finish, I will say, in terms of Edge going over, because I thought you're not. I mean, it looked like pre-SummerSlam and pre-sort of John Cena and Finn Balor getting involved in that mix, that it was going to be Seth Rollins going into that Roman Reigns picture. And I think a lot of people thought this was going to be the big win that tipped him over into that. So I was surprised when Edge won and tapped him out, no less.
Well, listen, now knowing what you know, what good would it have done if Seth Rollins had one when Brock Lesnar's just returned?
Granted,
yes.
But
that might have played into the
give
thinking.
Him the win because Edge is on a part-time deal, and we forget because of his injuries. Edge is basically, when he's been fit, he's been on TV the whole time. So we forget he is just on a part-time deal.
He's making updates, really. A bit like where, that Jeff Hardy had injury and they went, we're going to tackle on this. And that's essentially what's happened to Edge. And I think for Rollins and Edge, Rollins never got off the curb which was like a vital component of the story. I think there will be another match down the line somewhere and Rollins will get the win. Yeah. But, there's a fine balance, right? You want your legends to put people over and stuff. But Edge is coming off the WrestleMania loss where he was stacked and then he lost to Roman again.
True.
He needed a win, really, to be honest, to keep up that sort of superstar aura. And it doesn't hurt Rollins to lose to Edge. So I think all things considered probably is the right decision for now. But I do think Rollins will get the victory over him eventually. And then, I guess that leads us into the two world title matches.
We'll get into the Raw one first. Goldberg and Bobby Lashley, which I thought was meh at best. I quite like the post-match angle, though. I will say I quite liked Gage Goldberg getting in there. Really didn't sell the full nails and the Lashley lock. But I thought it was cool to see him getting in there, kind of to pay off him being on TV, and it sets up another match which I expect to be in Saudi Arabia. WWE announced that Crown Jewel is going to be taking place in October. I know Andrew Zarian has been saying that for weeks now, even months now. So are you expecting Bobby and Goldberg in Saudi Arabia again?
Yes, I am. And I think everyone knows, who does know me, that I'm not a Goldberg fan. But what I will say is I enjoyed them trying to have an actual match as opposed to the terrible finisher fests that we've come to expect from Goldberg. They attempted to tell a story, whether it was good or not. So that they actually kept my attention somewhat. But very weak. The way Goldberg was selling the knee to get the actual match thrown out was pretty shit. And then from there, you've got Bobby Lashley should have been like, yeah, I've stopped him. But he was like, which didn't really sell the emphaticness of the finish either.
No.
And I thought, it was cool that he then choked out the Sun. That pretty much saved the whole thing for me. But other than that, very forgettable. I didn't feel like that match did for Bobby Lashley what you would have hoped it would.
Yeah, I mean, my big takeaway from this and the post-match was, I can see why they've gone back to it, because there's just no one on Raw right now with AJ Styles and Randy Orton in the tag title picture, and Drew, who I don't think any of us want near the title picture for the foreseeable future. You need Goldberg or someone else, or even Brock. And we'll get onto that. But I do think Big E needs to come over to Raw ASAP.
Yeah, I do.
And that can be your feud for the foreseeable future, having Big E cash in on Bobby Lashley. I think that's needed. It'd be something fresh, something new. You don't have to build him up per se, although he's already built up. Like, you can just have him cash in. Yeah, I'd be in favor of that. Get him back with New Day, because I do think Raw, the rosters now, particularly with Brock and Becky going over, we're in need of a draft soon, because Raw is thin on the ground compared to SmackDown. I think SmackDown is definitely the A show in terms of talent. I mean, you've got Becky, Cena. You've got all of WWE's biggest stars are on SmackDown. It's not split evenly at all. Do you think that's a bit of a worry? And is that why people tend to enjoy SmackDown a little bit more?
I mean, it helps. I think it definitely helps. If I looked at the balance of the rosters, and I did at the last draft, a lot of my favorites are on SmackDown, right? Naturally. And on top of that, it's a 2-hour show, so things are more condensed and entertaining. It just is what it is. Becky's probably going to be coming over now in September, which is cool, for the tour.
That's good.
I hadn't thought about that, right? But it's it's no secret. You look at the compositions of the roster, and I do think SmackDown have got the better end of the deal. But it also tells you, once upon a time, Vince would load up Raw because that was the flagship show. But, SmackDown's on Fox now, and that's a big money maker. And Fox is arguably a bigger network than the USA network. And I know both networks are always kind of jockeying for WWE's love, but I think Fox will always win that battle. And I mean, I don't think they've crammed them in either, right? Just because if you actually look at the story, Lesnar and Roman, I would have liked to see Lesnar and Lashley, which I still think we will at some point.
I hope so.
But I also see, Lesnar and Lashley first time, that would be great. But I understand from a Vince McMahon perspective, with the Paul Heyman dynamic, Roman Reigns and Lesnar, with the roles reversed from their previous feud where Roman is now the heel, I can understand why they think that's big business. It is big business. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's a difficult one because you want to see both matches, and that's not a bad problem to have because I'm looking forward to both. And again, I don't think I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm really looking forward to a Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns feud after seeing it for so many years. I'm looking forward to seeing it again. But my issue with Raw right now, and it's kind of to do with the rosters, it just needs a draft. I would get Drew away from the brand as quickly as possible, maybe even get Seth over. I know it's going to be confusing with Becky now, but we'll figure it out. I think it does need some fresh faces to kind of reinvigorate it, make new storylines and such. And maybe, as you said, AJ Styles can get into that singles division now. But I think that SmackDown is definitely, if you didn't think it was the A show, it is now based on everything we saw at SummerSlam. And kind of what cemented that was at the end of the show, at the end of the John Cena Roman Reigns match, which as well give your thoughts on. Brock Lesnar returns to close up the show. Cowboy Brock Lesnar, ponytail and all, looking. I like his new look. I think it's unique.
Meat cleaver Lesnar.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
And then you've got Roman standing over John Cena with Paul Heyman there, and then Brock's music hits, and Paul's selling this amazingly, and that closes the show. No physicality. And that's how we end. So again, something to be very excited about, similar to how Money in the Bank ended, in kind of like setting up this is going to be the next direction. Your thoughts on the match between Cena and Reigns, and kind of what we saw after the match with Brock Lesnar returning?
Yeah, so the match itself, I thought delivered in every way that it needed to. I don't think it's going to be like, a classic that we wax lyrical about for years. Like, it was good. I don't think it was like great. And when I say the term great, I mean, like Styles and Cena from years, you go, wow, that was great. Like, I don't think people are going to be like, that was the best match on the card even, but it was good, very good. The home stretch of the match was very good too. A lot of people would have thought Reigns was cooked after the AA off the top rope. But yeah, I think they delivered and they put on the spectacle. So that was cool. In terms of like the post-match, how do you not do Lesnar and Reigns with Paul Heyman in the middle? How do you not do that? That's just easy money. It's just interesting that, Brock, I think Brock says like a word or two to Heyman in the ring, and then Heyman leaves with Roman. So it's like, is that clearly like defining the lines? Or I don't know. Like I thought that was very well done and intriguing. I'm very interested to see where that one is heading. But, a lot of people, and I saw Andrew Zarian kind of allude to this on Twitter, that this was WWE's reaction to CM Punk. That
I don't think so.
They went and got, I don't either. They went and got Brock Lesnar. Either way, Brock Lesnar was in a wonderful position to negotiate. I always thought that Becky was coming back at SummerSlam, but I really wasn't sure about Brock. But I'm glad that he is, man. Like, I think we've heard from enough people, and I consider myself in that same camp, who just wax lyrical about the abilities of Brock when he's at the top of his game. So he's always like working with Roman. You add Paul into that mix, it's just going to be fun. It's going to be good. It's a fresh storyline. I know people were like, we had this kind of with, I don't know, like Heyman and the Big Show and Brock back in the day. But like, to me, this is a lot different. It's particularly the way that Heyman represents Roman compared to how he does Brock is very different. So now the dynamic, and then Brock being the face and Roman being the heel, like, to me, it's a very good story to keep this going. And if Roman gets past him as well, Jesus, like I was saying earlier, what an all-time run that looks like there. And then you're on the home straight to The Rock.
So say my one worry for this is I don't want them to split Paul and Roman. I hope they keep with that and have Brock either find a new manager or go on his own. Going on his own, I mean, he's not the best promo, let's be honest. You don't really need to have him cutting promos, but in the case you do, I had this not weird thought, but an interesting thought that I think could work. Who would you like to see, as if Brock does get a new manager or a new mouthpiece, who would you like to see it be?
Oh, God.
Because I had an idea for this, and I don't know if it's going to work, and I don't think it'll work.
I think it's hard to imagine a life without Paul Heyman for Brock Lesnar. Like, we saw it, we have seen it periodically in WWE. I don't know if it's never been as good as with Heyman, which is the problem. Like, I would not mind, although I don't know how you get here with the two major ego of the talents involved, but where Heyman is just dipping in both, and he's like monopolizing. But I don't know how that happens. But I'd like to see it at least, as part of the story, be attempted and see how that works. And then I don't know, maybe eventually he feels like, things are better with Brock under Roman. I'm just like his lonely, servant. But I saw Roman say to Ariel Helwani the other day as well that he never wants to lose Heyman as part of his package now. So,
well, speaking of, I had a weird thought.
Go on.
Very weird thought, and it would never work. But I think Ariel Helwani would be a great manager.
Fucking hell. Do you?
I genuinely do.
Listen, I love Ariel, like, for the record.
I would be shocked if he doesn't do some more work on screen with WWE. I would be absolutely shocked.
Yeah, probably. I mean, you got Alex McCarthy even doing interviews in NXT. Like, it's not inconceivable that Helwani could do the same. But a manager,
I don't know. I was thinking about it.
It's a tough sell.
I was like, who fits? And I guess it's because obviously he's got the ties to MMA, so that kind of works. He's a business guy. It kind of works. Like, I was thinking, who could it be? And I thought Daniel Cormier. Could that work? I don't think so. Definitely.
They'd be rivals. Yeah.
Of course. But, like, I was like, who is that guy that, like, not on the level of Heyman, and I know they all do work together, but I was like, who is that guy that you could put in there with Brock and create something new? And I genuinely couldn't think of anyone because I think Brock and Paul work so well together. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm sure they will do, like, kind of dipping their toes into both, which should be an interesting story. I don't think it'll be Extreme Rules. I think that'll be Finn Balor, to be honest.
Probably.
And then I think that is your Saudi Arabia show. Probably. Who cares? Who cares, to be honest, where it takes place? I'm looking forward to it. And I will say that. I will say it's different, it's new, it's fresh. I mean, it's saying that it's not fresh, but the story's fresh. It is
fresh.
The heel face dynamic.
We've never seen it with we've never seen it the way the pieces are aligned.
Of course, and I think that's important, and it should be good. But something I did kind of want to touch on. We've in Saudi Arabia, we know that it's going to be King of the Ring and Queen of the Ring, or at least according to Andrew Zarian, at least. What do you think about the tournaments returning? I know Charlotte Flair had something to say to you about it this week in terms of the Queen of the Ring. As kind of your thoughts on the tournaments while we are talking about the Saudi Arabia show, and kind of what you think those two finals should be come the event.
Well, I mean, I've been a big proponent of the King of the Ring for years anyway. I felt like it did a lot to help the careers of Owen Hart in particular, also Brett, Kurt Angle, that is Steve Austin. These are guys that really, really benefited from winning a King of the Ring. Unfortunately, these days, they seem to attribute it with, Brock Lesnar as well, by the way. But these days, they seem to attribute winning the crown as just wearing the crown, like you win the prop, as opposed to the status that King of the Ring used to represent. And that used to be you're on the pathway to the world title. And in Brock Lesnar's case, you got a shot at the world title. So I would like to see it return to that esteem to fully get the benefit of it. And I've campaigned for a while that the women should have a Queen of the Ring as well. It just makes all the sense in the world. Like, why wouldn't you do that? And I always thought that you have Charlotte get to the final
and lose,
and lose, and whoever beats her, it's an amazing nod. Charlotte has obviously said to me this week that she would prefer not to be in the tournament. She'd like someone else to be able to win that because she already has the Queen moniker, and then you can do at the next show Queen versus winner of the Queen of the Ring, right? Which is, I guess, that's a cool match to bill. So if I had to go out on a limb and pick a winner for Queen of the Ring. I mean, someone made a good point about this the other day. You've got a few queens: Queen of Spades, Queen of Hearts. I
only one queen.
Yeah, I feel like a first winner, I would make it someone big, just to like set the tone. You know what I mean? Like whether that be a Becky or Sasha. Probably Sasha is probably who I would give it to. Or Bianca. Hang on. Yeah, I was just about to say Bianca. Because, again, if that's where we are and she hasn't won the title back by then, give it to Bianca. And as for the men, anything but Xavier Woods, I will consider a flop.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be him. I mean, if they're smart, they'll have him lose in the final to a heel.
No, that's not smart. That is what WWE do. That is what they do.
Are you telling me, if I don't know what heel it'd be, but you give it to a heel who beats Xavier Woods in the final. I think that's pretty smart.
What's wrong with giving Xavier Woods a bloody lovely moment that he's wanted his whole career?
It would be great. It would be great.
It better be a great heel that you're building.
Yeah.
Right? If you're going to do that. And who would it be? Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Sami
Let
Zayn, maybe.
let the people have a feel good moment for once. That'd be my argument.
He does deserve it, to be fair. I mean, he wants King of the Ring more than anyone. But guys, I think that will wrap up our time today on the Turnbuckle Talk podcast. It's been an absolute pleasure to be joined by you, Alex, the originator of the show.
You asked people for questions today, and we're just going to bomb them off.
I did.
No questions.
I did forget to do that. Ignore me. I'm too tired. But let me go to some questions.
We'll do a few.
We will do a few. Let me go. I tweet far too much, don't I? Right, here we go. So Jeremy Lambert says, when are we going to interview him? I'm sure he'll get to that. But Greg Cherry says, you both enjoy the camaraderie that comes with the wrestling media. And who would you like to do work with that you haven't before?
First of all, I love Jeremy. I love him.
So do I.
I think he's an excellent member of this whole wrestling media tribe. Admire him greatly, and I would like him back on Wrestling Daily one day. Also, I love the wrestling media landscape mostly. Since I came up, for want of a better term, 4 or 5 years ago now. Guys like Sean, before now he's got about 100,000 followers, but before those days when he was, I don't know, like a quarter of that, if that.
Yeah.
He was still always very supportive. He's kept the same energy throughout, which I appreciate. He's always liked to shine a light on the hardworking individuals and, above all else, good work. And I like to do that too. I like to feel like within our shores, I've always moved to do the same, great women that I've seen out there like Ella J, Steph Chase, Molly Bell, like whoever is out there doing good work. I like to highlight that, and I feel like that trickles down from the likes of Sean. A lot of people don't like Ryan Satin, but again, he's been nothing but helpful to me in my career, so I would never want to put him down too much from a personal level. He's been very good to me. Mike Johnson as well is another guy who's been very nice to me, and a man's work that I admire. It can be so like Dave Meltzer is obviously the mountaintop in many ways through tenure and body of work. You could argue. I would argue Sean's number one now, but I think with his status, and then there's some fan bases, and sometimes you get it works both ways with Meltzer. You get the people that are like diehards for him, and then you get some that are like, oh, I stopped reading when you said reported by Meltzer, and you think, come on. So some of that toxicity that comes with wrestling media, like there is a stigma sometimes that comes with it, and I think that's the whole being called wrestling journalists. I would say that we're like wrestling media rather than journalists, but by and large, I'm really appreciative of all the peers I've ever been blessed to be around and work with, and I'm very grateful for the relationships that I've made that have helped me in my career and the great work that I continue to see. I would say Ariel Helwani is somebody that I would like to work closer with or do something with one day. We know each other a bit. Like I've spoke to him again. I'm an MMA fan and coverer as well as wrestling, so we've I think we follow each other maybe on Twitter and Instagram. We've had a couple of conversations, but I would love to. I mean, his level should be something that we, aspire to get to, because that is, what's he got, like 1 million followers, and some of the guests that he have on all of his shows, and he's a man in demand. Yeah, that's something you should aspire to for sure. So yeah, I'm very, very grateful.
Yeah, on his note, if you haven't checked out his interview, BT Sport with Nick Khan, who I didn't realize was his agent until before he left WWE. And I mean, I think that before he joined WWE, and I think that says a lot about Ariel, how the president of WWE was his agent like a year ago. Like it's like the president of one of the biggest wrestling company, like a publicly traded company, was like Ariel Helwani's agent. So I just think that's crazy. But yeah, he's great. Someone else, and I've never interacted with him, is Dave Meltzer, that I will want to speak to, because I mean, I think he knows wrestling, and is like he's a historian. Like he's watched more matches than probably anyone. He like I just think he is just a bank of knowledge. It'd be so interesting to pick his brains, kind of see what he thinks about certain things. I know you can get that on Wrestling Observer Radio. So he's definitely someone I want to work with as well. But similarly to you, like when I try to explain to people about wrestling media, it's very strange, because it's very hard to describe what this weird space is and how we're all kind of friends, but we'll all slag each other off on Twitter, and we won't all act incredibly professionally sometimes, but that's cool. But we'll all like support each other's work. We're all very supportive of each other on the whole, which is nice. I mean, you can post an interview, and every time you do it and every time I do it, someone will retweet it, or like someone will be like, "Oh, check out this great interview," or you get a few messages about it, which is nice. And I think it is nice how, kind of as Greg said in his question, like it's a weird bubble, but it's a nice bubble, and there is some nice camaraderie. So yeah, it's a weird space and hard to describe to people that aren't in wrestling Twitter or aren't in wrestling media. But
I think generally, like, the work is where it is, right? Like, people appreciate, and this goes for your peers and just the audience at large. People appreciate good, hard work, and I think once you prove that, and you're not like, a chancer, like, and we've seen those people come and go in wrestling media, and they largely contribute to the bad image that some of us have had to endure over the years. But I think once you put together that body of work and you're consistent, and hopefully, you're a positive, nice person in general, that's when you start to, win people over, and collaborating or supporting just becomes much easier. And so it's a process. It is a process for sure.
Yeah, it's a weird process, but I think one I wouldn't change being involved in, because it is such a weird, crazy space. But as you say, good work is always rewarded by kind of people signal boosting you. So I guess to anyone out there, work hard and you'll find your way.
Cream rises.
Exactly. I found this question to be quite interesting from Murray Lindsay, who says, when adding downloads and clips from social media, how much higher do you think the ratings actually are? AEW got 975,000 for one day, but how much higher do you think it is for streaming, downloading, etc.? Like, obviously, we both said this during the show. We're not the most knowledgeable on the topic. I mean, thank God Showbuzz Daily's back to make it a little bit easier. But yeah, I think that, and it's something definitely worth considering, and I often do this, because, like, say the viewership for Raw is, I don't know, high 1.5 million, and if you go onto YouTube, right, and you look at some of the clips for Raw, and like how much they've been viewed, for example, so like the Randy Orton and Riddle reunite RK Bros got like 2.5 million views, which like. How many of those 1.5 million people that watch Raw are rewatching that? Probably a healthy portion. But I think the majority of people who, that is just the way they view content now. I know my brother's one of them. He will go, I'm not going to watch Raw because it's a 3-hour show. And like, I mean, WWE puts like the finish to the matches on YouTube. Like, you can watch just on YouTube and catch up. Like, if you don't have the time to watch the full show, I've done it from time to time. So it would be interesting to see what the actual, like, how many people consume Monday Night Raw content. I think I would say it's about in the same that watch it live. So I'd say the viewership figure probably doubles personally.
I mean, sometimes
I've just pulled that number out of my head, by the way. So that's
I mean, look, 4.5 million people have watched the CM Punk return video.
Yeah.
So, I don't know how many of them watched the show live at the time, but it has to be a lot, right? I mean, either way, if you just took that number at face value without adding on anything else, that's like, wow. So it's a difficult one to gauge, because there are so many different ways. Like, sometimes I'll just read the results on the train when I'm going in. If I haven't had a chance to watch it yet, but I need to know what's happened, obviously, for the working day, I'll just read. I'll just be like, okay, well, blah, blah, blah. And then I'll go back and watch the context later on. And sometimes I'll record it and watch it. Sometimes it will just be YouTube clips, or social media clips is another one. If there's been a NXT or something, I'll have a quick scroll and there's the clips of what happened. That's all you need. So I understand that viewing habits are different. I do like to watch the full show, because I feel like sometimes you miss the little backstage bits, or, just the little kind of connecting parts of a show. You don't get the whole promo. Yeah. I want to see it all. Much for my sins. But yeah, I do think it's interesting, but I don't think they'll ever calibrate it that way
No.
Because that, at the end of the day, like for a TV deal or money or things like that, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, exactly. But it would be interesting. And I think that, yes, viewership and interest in wrestling has declined, but it's also worth considering how people view content nowadays.
Yes.
But I very much like that question, actually. That was a slightly out of the box, interesting question. We will do one more before I let you leave ahead of Takeover, which we're both not sure if we're going to watch. I think I'll have to watch it. But so how do you repair the Raw Women's Division from Shane? Let's end on that. I know. End on that big note.
Nice, easy one then, eh?
For me, the draft is needed. I'd get Sasha Banks over ASAP. I think she could have great feuds with Charlotte again. I think she could have great feuds with Rhea Ripley, even Nikki Ash. I think you could have something there. Asuka. I would either do that with Banks or Bella and move someone over to kind of freshen that scene up. And then just start using people like Asuka. Because how you can't use her. Shayna Baszler as well. No, Shayna Baszler as well. Like it does need a bit of a kick up the arse in terms of talent, but the talent is there. So I'd say, yeah, kind of just it's to kind of take that very complex question and answer it in the most simple manner possible. I would try and draft some people over, but also just use the talent you've got and make more compelling storylines, which I know easier said than done, but
yeah. For me, like especially on a 3-hour show like Raw, there's no excuse that someone like Asuka can't even have a story. You know, her and Shayna Baszler, I've said this for ages, is a story waiting to happen. You don't need the title to tell that story. Two of NXT's greatest women's champions, just fucking book it. You know, you got Toni Storm, Mia Yim sitting there doing nothing. Why can't you have Mia Yim trying to prove herself against Carmella? Right? Mia Yim, ostensibly speaking, the better wrestler, wants to prove herself, move up the ladder. There's an easy story, a fresh one. Toni Storm, get her in there. You know, maybe like look at her and the returning Zelina Vega and say, hey, you know, you've come back, but I want that spot. Why should you just walk back into it? I'm not, you know, maybe I don't have all the answers in the exact stories, but I'm saying there are a lot of talented women out there that could be put to use, and there is enough TV time to do that. So to me, you could call up Io Shirai tomorrow and Raquel Gonzalez, Dakota Kai, and you know, you could do the draft and reset the rosters. But at the end of the day, that's like Band-Aids over a gunshot wound. You need the proper time invested into the stories, right? And you need to actually get the right creative, which I know is a big statement in and of itself, but maybe have more women on creative. WWE have hardly any, right? The last one I ever knew about was Andrea Listenberger. I think that's it. Other than that,
there was the lady, I can't remember her name.
They let her go, the Mandy Rose story. Yeah, I know.
No,
no, that's Andrea, isn't it? Sorry.
Yeah, the lady that was that got Bobby Lashley's name wrong in the interview.
Well, she don't count. She only lasted about a week.
Well, no, yeah, I was going to say, like, she was there for a hot minute and then isn't there anymore.
Yeah, I feel like they could do with more women in more prominent positions, because you look at Impact, who have Gail Kim and Madison Rayne and people like that in important roles backstage, and that's why the Knockouts division is showcased the way it is. They all have great, you know, they have a lot of stories going on. I feel like, you know, Gail Kim wouldn't leave Impact, I don't think, but someone like that would be an immense capture.
Molly Holly's
she is there as a producer. That's different.
I know, but you're still suggesting those kind of ideas, and I know not creatively.
You're more involved in the matches, right?
Yes, like, I meant in terms of the ideas within matches and the story beats. But listen,
again, by the way, they've got no problems there. They've already got Fit Finlay and Tyson Kidd who would kill it, right? Like Molly Holly's a great addition. Not saying she isn't, but they need women who can craft stories that women can appreciate outside of a love angle or a title. Yeah. Or, you know, you bitch. Like, women are more than that. And the talent there is more than that.
I agree. A couple of things I did want to make on that note. For balance, don't think this is just a WWE problem. I think AEW's their weakest point. Admittedly, they don't have many. Is their women's division and their handling of that. It got better. Kind of that's dwindled, I think. over the last couple of months again. And secondly, I also think with WWE, the issue isn't solely like, it's not like the men's stuff is great and the women's stuff isn't. It's all a bit meh right now. Yeah. And I think that I've seen some people go, treat your women better. And it's like, let's treat everyone better, like in terms of the storylines and the story beats. But I think there is stuff to be excited about coming out of SummerSlam, particularly on the SmackDown side of things. So it should be very interesting over the coming weeks. And I'm sure you and I will hopefully be interviewing some of the members of the rosters over the next couple of weeks. But who have you had recently that you kind of want to draw some light to, tell people where to check out if they haven't?
Jesus. So from a podcast perspective, the last 2 episodes, we did 2 episodes for Talk Wrestling on SummerSlam week, and we had 10 interviews combined, right? Samoa Joe was on the first one. Then we had Volta and Dragunov, Ali, Roderick Strong, EC3. Jesus, there's so many that my mind is struggling. Rollins, Charlotte Flair, Bobby Lashley. There's another one now which I'm going to feel terrible about forgetting. But either way, man, we've had a stacked week here at talkSPORT, and there's so much content there. It's just an hour and a half of great interviews. The Ali interview in particular is wildly good. If I do say so myself, he has a lot to say. So Eva Marie was the other one. Sorry, Eva. So yeah, there's a lot going on there, and inside the ropes you can see a lot of the video ones that I've put out. So talksport.com, the Talk Wrestling podcast, or Inside the Ropes, and you can check out all the good things I've been doing. And got a lot of stuff on the horizon as well. So
very nice, very nice. Yeah, I mean, from my side, for people that I'm sure if you're on the GiveMeSport YouTube channel, you can see some of the interviews that I've had. But Samoa Joe, Ilya Dragunov as well. Drew McIntyre one still up fairly recent, talking about SummerSlam, and then hopefully we'll have some more over the coming weeks. And then WWE's coming to the UK the end of September, which should be a lot of fun, and we'll hopefully get a lot of content filmed there. But guys, thank you very much for checking out this debut episode of the revamped Turnbuckle Talk podcast with myself and Alex McCarthy. It will be myself and another special guest next week. So make sure that you subscribe to the channel, put who you'd like to see me speak to below, give this video a like, and give us some suggestions below. This is still a revamped new show that we're all kind of figuring out. So if you've got any cool ideas for stuff you want to do, any talking points that you want us to address, get them in the comments, and we will make sure to sort of divulge them and discuss them in the best way possible. But before I let you go, Alex, give us the quick plugs for where people can find your work. I know you mentioned Talk Wrestling Podcast. All about social media. Kind of give us the plugs.
The skinny. So AlexM_talksport is my Twitter and Instagram. I do put longer videos up of my interviews on Instagram, so there's a small incentive to go follow me there. But I won't lie, Twitter is where it all really goes down for me. So give me a good follow there if you like. But otherwise, yeah, talkSPORT is my bread and butter, and that's where you'll find all of my good stuff. So yeah, I should maybe have an announcement coming soon on other stuff. That is connected, it's all interwoven. And hopefully we'll do some cool stuff in the upcoming pay-per-views. But I will keep you posted on that. And you can find that news probably on my Twitter. So there you go.
Go follow Alex. But guys, thank you so much for checking out this podcast, this first episode. And let's hopefully catch you on the next one.